Hey, all, Doug Pagitt here from Vote Common Good. On our podcast, we talk with people that help all of us find a way toward the common good, especially those of us who consider ourselves to be people of faith, because we think that the common good should be our driving force and our voting criteria in all that we do. Well, today we had a conversation with Rabbi Joseph Edelheit, a really good friend of mine, someone who is my rabbi, and he's been the rabbi to the church that I used to pastor. He's someone who really knows how to engage with people who differ from him as someone inclusive and welcoming. And I think what he models and what he calls for in our conversation is that in our country, we need to find a way to include and to engage even those that we differ from. Because as he puts it, pluralism requires that we find ways to dialogue, that we find ways to connect, not only because we have something to share, but because we have something to gain and we have something to offer. So Rabbi Joseph suggests a different way than just picking a political side and fighting for it. Now, neither of us are saying that we shouldn't have political opinions. We both do, very strong ones. We have a vision about the way we want the world to be. We advocate for those things. The question is not, are we committed to a political vision? The question is, how do we interact with those who have a different view, who have a different understanding? Rabbi Joseph suggests that dialogue, not debate, is the best way forward. Now, he's not someone who takes lightly the impact of people that have different views. He talks in our long conversation, of which this is just a portion, about the danger that exists for people like him, for Jews in America, and for other people who feel like there's a majority effort going on that really harms the Jewish community in the United States. So he's firmly aware of the history and of the presence of the danger. His suggestion, which I think is important for all of us, is the response to that is to engage in pluralistic dialogue where we understand one another and we come to better understand ourselves. I really hope you get a lot out of this conversation. And if you're interested in watching the entire hour-long conversation, there's also a link to that here on a YouTube channel. So enjoy. It feels like pluralism is something that's not supported, cheered on, kind of by both sides of the political spectrum. There's
correct. Absolutely correct. So today we're talking about Christian nationalism and the problem of anti-Semitism, but we could be talking about what's going to happen when the human being who attacked Salman Rushdie begins to explain whether he did it on the basis of a fatwa of radical, cruel Islam. Okay? Extremes on both sides. It's the certainty on both sides. I've spent a lifetime, a career working on not being liberal, but on being inclusive and pluralistic.
Yeah. Okay. Talk about the difference. That's so, you're onto something. It felt like it was a well-funded idea, at least for you and I, over, a decade and a half of relationship, and for 25 years, last 25 years of my life, that the difference between being inclusive and pluralistic versus conservative or something, like it's another way to be. It may end you up, and it has for me in a lot of my politics and supporting certain things, but it's also an approach to what do you do with the other. And that feels like a piece that's really missing from our current conversations.
So my teacher at the University of Chicago, David Tracy, came to us and said, here are the things I want you to read that Voltaire wrote that helped frame the French Revolution. Okay. Oh, here are the things that I want you to read that Voltaire wrote that fueled the days of terror. What? Oh, yeah, same guy wrote them both.
What was the difference in those writings?
Modernity is anchored in radical ambiguity. If I'm going to be in a pluralistic, dialogical relationship, I have to find ways for my evangelical Catholic Pentecostal, Methodist, all of them. How do I relate to the differences that sustain my identity? Dialogue is not about pushing differences aside.
Yes.
It's about learning how to be present to differences.
Okay, so
And that's
we'll do an entire
what
course on this, because this is the thing that I think really lands for a lot of people, is that there's a way of approaching interfaith and interculture, interpolitical life. One is to say, and I hear this a lot, let's not talk about the things that make us different. Let's talk about the things we share. Let's talk about our shared values. Okay, I'm all for that. I totally get that. We should talk about our shared values. And we should talk about the things that make us particular, unique, and diverse from one another, so that we can know and understand and accept those. But that practice of hearing and listening to somebody else who's different and valuing them, even amongst disagreeing about things that are really important, that feels like the thing that pluralism, that I thought the American experiment was about. Because it felt, I mean, whoever wants the melting pot, it just conjures up an image of fondue, which is kind of a lovely, late winter treat, but not a very good way to think about people. Like we're all blended, we're all melted together and become indistinguishable. And then some people talk about a salad. A mixed salad is sort of a better way, where they sort of sit next to each other. But I don't know. I want something that's not either of those food metaphors, something that is where people are different of views and ideas and understanding are impacting each other and are changing themselves because of their impact with someone who's different. That there's a true, as you called it, a dialogical, relational experience that impacts you. I felt like that was, I don't know, when I was sort of coming of age, I felt like that was the pursuit. And it seems to me that that's not the pursuit anymore. Not anymore. It's not as in favor.
We have given up the risks of dialogue. We're not interested in dialogue. We've moved from debate and dialogue which provides you the possibility of discernment, wisdom. You don't win or lose a dialogue.
That's a great point.
You don't.
You
That's
don't
debate.
win or lose a dialogue.
That's fine,
it's a debate.
but we've now moved to a consistent diatribe. And the intention of diatribe is to discredit. Dialogue is to be present and learn, gee, what is it that defines you? Not so I can change your mind, but I can learn about you so I can be present to you. I don't know when we gave into, but we're angry tribes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really the conundrum of, and I hear people make the argument, and there's power to it. I know what they're saying, that we live in such dangerous times. So much is at risk. We can't give a moment of comfort to the enemy. We don't have time for all of that.
We're all missing something.
Yeah, and the idea of that, and of this conversation, if people haven't picked it up already, is the point of pluralism is because we come with a missing piece, and that missing piece is over there. And it was
my good friend Larry Kushner uses the metaphor. Our lives are like a puzzle, but we open the puzzle to find out some pieces are missing, and we have pieces that don't belong to our puzzle.
So what do we do with that? Yeah.
And like that. Relationships are often about, Doug is in my life because I have a puzzle he needs.
Yes.
I have a piece he needs.
Well, that is that is the approach that people will find in your book, What Am I Missing? So if they're interested in that idea and how do we get there, and seeing that as, part of the long tradition of spirituality and of humanity, because the way we've evolved as social creatures in our human experience is that there's actually interdependence even among those that we consider to be different or enemies or any of the rest of it, which is why for me the Jesus teaching of you love God, of course, you love your neighbor, and you love your enemy is the way that I access what Jewish communities have accessed for a very long time, those same teachings. And so we treat as indispensable those who are different from us. And that is just such a hard thing ever to do, especially when people feel that they're endangered. But the reason that's so great hearing it from you is because you, as you started out, and you've done this every time we've talked, and it's important to put Judaism in the context of a people that have been attacked from the start of, Western history. You start with enslavement and an exodus, and you just run it right up until today. So when a rabbi in American context in 2022 says, I think pluralism is our answer to threat, that means something. And I so appreciate it. And I hope people will follow up with you on